can I just, can I just sign it and
Just correct.
yeah, okay.
I apologize.
No, that's fine. You might have to. It's right on this one.
It's easier to get new drivers.
Well, can't legally change.
It could have been
without
spelled,
a huge ordeal.
it's probably spell check or something instead of.
Oh,
E.
sure.
It
I
probably,
can reprint them and bring them to you after the meeting, or once the meeting's concluded, I'll bring you the corrected version. Sorry about that.
They spilled my last name wrong in my statement.
Okay, it is 3:30, and you guys are ready to start.
Call to order the Independent Ethics Review Board for the City of Sugar Land on Wednesday, September 21st at 3:30 p.m. Sorry. Item 1 or 2, do we have any public comments?
Not.
Item 3, consideration of an action on the minutes of the June 22nd meeting. Were there any comments or changes? The motion to approve,
I make the motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes approved. Item number 4 is the workshop, the review of the discussions on the code of ethical conduct. And I will turn this over to our fearless leader Meredith for a robust discussion on the code of ethical conduct changes and updates.
Yes, ma'am. So you will notice in front of you, and I do apologize for those of you that are online. Apparently, if you add an attachment to Never's agenda, you have to hit save, and I failed to do so. And so my 2-page attachment is not included. What I attached was items that we were discussed at the 323 meeting, and we provided a copy at your June meeting. There's the definition of reciprocal benefit, the language on name clearing hearings, and those you had approved both of those at your last meeting. So those are not changes. At the last meeting, you had asked if we could revise section 2-85 from 13 months to 24 months and add a 5-year review. So the page that is going to be most interesting to you that I've attached is where I took section 285 and struck through the 13 and typed 24. And the other one, I added a new section 274, which is very similar to language in the charter. And for the benefit of our members online, I'll just read it. The council shall direct a comprehensive review of the code of ethical conduct as often as it deems necessary, but not less than every 5 years, to determine whether revisions should be made. At the conclusion of its review, the Independent Ethics Review Board or such other board, commissioner, task force that has assigned this review shall make a written report of its recommendations of changes if any to the city council. And my notes show those are the only revisions you have requested to the code. So I will take any other suggestions you might have, or we can talk about how you present this at the workshop.
Did anybody have additional changes or comments for the code?
let's see.
I'm usually silent.
What about the procedure? Judicial procedure, that's an attachment?
Oh, yes, sir. So, at either the meeting we do this or a different meeting, whichever works for you all, I will be taking a resolution forward to have them, they will rescind ordinance 06, I don't know the last 2 numbers, that adopted the procedures last time, and they will adopt a new resolution with the language you had provided and approved at your last. I could do that at this same meeting we do these, or I could do that separate one, because these are such minor amendments. I will group them together and I'll make a presentation with all the changes I'm making to the code, which is not very many. And if they have questions, I will ask. If anybody shows to me if you would like to address them or to the council. Our October workshop was canceled, I will not make the on Thanksgiving, so you could probably make the second meeting in December, or we could do that instead of your January meeting, if that works better for you all.
I don't have a strong preference for either. Does anybody have?
Did you say December or January? Is that the question?
Yes, ma'am. Instead of having your quarterly meeting in January, we could have this at a city council meeting in January or in December to make the changes to the code. City council meets first, third, and fourth Tuesdays of the month. So it would have to be the second Tuesday or the first Tuesday in December, because we're not going to meet the week of Christmas, or it would be in January.
Yeah, that's what we decided.
Okay.
Any preferences? Online, December versus January?
I'd like January.
It depends. So, what part of December, what part of January? So it depends.
Early part of December.
It would be the first or third Tuesday in December, or the first or third Tuesday in January.
I could not do the first in January, but I could do the third. And I could do either in December.
It's January 17th. December the 1st is 6th and the third one is the 20th. They do one on.
Yes, we do have to have 2 meetings a month. So they would not have the meeting most likely between Christmas and New Year's. They would cancel that workshop.
Any of those days. Work out.
The earlier part of December is fine. You start getting to the 20th and
I am sure.
it's parental conflict.
Okay, so
That works for me too, the early part of December. As opposed to the third, as well as January.
okay, great. Let me get with the city secretary's office with Natalie and see if I can get on the pending list. And I'll get approval from the city manager and mayor, and we will try to go for the first meeting in December. Your attendance is not required. It would be nice if some of you would show just to have the support in case council has questions as to these proposed changes. I did provide, I will email it to both of you, and I apologize, I did not hit save. So you were not able to get the language for the agenda, but I can email it to you. It's just the same proposed language. So we will not be doing the presentation. I will be, you'll be lumped in with some other changes. Very short meeting today. But
So I was reading an article about a, yeah.
option is how it may be related to the president. I think it's possible.
Oh,
We don't have our.
no, it was just a phrase that was used in an ethics investigation that I thought was interesting and maybe something we want to look at. And we wanted, but the statement they made was at a minimum, the connection between the politician and the company, just what they call creates a reasonable appearance of impropriety. And I like that because there may be a point where someone has done something, and we always say that phrase didn't pass the smell test. But reasonable appearance of impropriety sounds fancier than the smell test. And we are, if we were presented with a violation or an alleged violation, and it didn't cross the ethical line, but we want to say to whoever it was, that was really close. I think that phrase, in whatever rendering we give, that if we choose just to put in, a letter at that finish or something like that, that's a great way of explaining you didn't break the law. You're not getting punished. But what you did came really close, so be careful. And it was just a suggestion as to using that phrase as opposed to the smell test. Or putting it in the section if we do. Okay. Where we talk about, you know, we can give them a letter of admonition, or we can punish them, or we can suggest.
If they didn't break the code, we know better.
First page,
This page,
on the first section,
yes,
it may be appropriate now.
okay. This one. Okay, officials act as fiduciaries. Huh?
Of the general purpose.
Okay. Read it.
Oh, you don't have to read, but
Oh.
that's the judge.
Okay. Second reading to you. That's what
Sorry.
we're talking. Right, so someone can allege a violation, we can look at it and go. You didn't break the law. You didn't come to a full and complete stop and count STOP, so we're gonna let you know. You didn't break the law, but what you did certainly violates our consideration of what's acceptable, and we are allowed to do that, allowed to say to somebody, what you did didn't look good. Please, I don't do that again, think about it. You don't have to find somebody guilty to explain to them that what they did wasn't acceptable from our ethical oral judgment. Not
The idea of reform rather than punitive.
correct, it's to guide them to say, you gotta be cleaner than that.
If it's not a violation, will that make it to begin with, or we got
Sure.
to filter out beforehand?
The complaint would come forward and say, we think that you or that this elected or appointed official conducted this act, which is a violation of the code. And you may say, you know, I didn't actually violate the code. It's smell test. It looks like you might have had a conflict of interest, but from a legal standpoint, under this code, you did not actually have a fit the box conflict of interest. And you gave a $10,000 bottle of wine to this person who didn't have to over here. And, you know, you circumvent it. So it doesn't smell right, but it's not actual violation. That could be part of this finding. I think Rochelle unmuted that she might have had a comment. Okay.
If
Just
it wasn't
isolate them.
actual violation. If it was an actual violation, though, would that be filtered out before it came to us, or?
No, we would determine it as a violation.
All I determine is whether or not it's within the time period.
So,
If it's signed and sworn, if the person who's alleged to violate the code, accepts the code, and if the violation that they allege is one of the rules. I don't make a determination, yes or no. You actually have a own attorney. I'll say attorney sits in and helps you. But I don't make any determination as to whether or not what punishment should be worth a violation of first. I just can check the box, the signed person subject to code to define limits and the alleged violation and it's responsibility.
Please. You know, when you have the red light cameras, somebody runs the light, the ticket gets issued, you go fight it, the judge says, well, it's actually, you have 0.2 of a second after it turned red before it becomes a full violation. You were somewhere between 2 and 0.3 of a second. I'm not gonna find you guilty and fine you, but it's clear that your car passed that red light. And I need you to pay better attention to your driving. And that's well within our scope. If a violation comes to us and like, yeah, you didn't actually violate the letter of the law, but you approached it.
Is that within our scope?
If it comes to us and we decide that you didn't,
You have to make a finding of something property food. So your finding may be no violation. but
Within a letter of, okay.
So is there consequence because you've been warned before? Is there a separate consequence if you have that like I said, some kind of informative information sent to you, and then you continue, is there subsequently a different type of consequence afterwards? Or is it even across the board?
As written, if it's not a violation, there is no punishment. I don't know that you would want to say 2 warnings for almost breaking the law and now the slap. But that would be for you all to decide if you want to make that.
So that's why that was probably the purpose of my question was, I mean, if it's not an actual violation of the code and the standards in the code, then like, what's the so what of that, right? Like, I mean, if it comes to us, we review it, it would be within our scope for review, but if it wasn't actually a violation of something within the code, then
Right, but we could say that, like, you didn't violate the code. But I'm just gonna admonish you that you're stepping into a gray area. And rather than say smell test, whatever that was,
Reasonable appearance of impropriety.
thank you.
Is there benefit to having it in the document versus just us saying it to them at that time and
Well, it doesn't even have to be in the document, I just wanted to have the discussion about. We constantly use smell test, and this is a way better definition of the smell test.
If you did want to add it, I would suggest at the first part where it talks more about the expectation, the purpose of having it is to look responsible, to be transparent, to follow the rules, to hold yourself to high standards. That would be
That would be the appropriate.
a good place to,
Yeah.
if you wanted to add.
yeah, because I think beyond that, it's not finite. It doesn't have like a standard or a regulation or anything tied to it. So it becomes more a subjective feeling of the board versus like an objective violation of the standard.
Mhm.
I don't think the language is bad. I think it's something that we could incorporate within.
Right,
The
so
expectation.
it's a public trust requires that acts which are contrary to public interest be defined and prohibited. That there be an orderly procedure for raising and addressing questions of ethical behavior be encouraged, and unethical behavior be discouraged. Suitably disciplined through the process, which is fundamentally fair. Define it as something that.
Reasonable appearance of
Yeah.
impact.
Avoid all that.
Well, I mean, you could theoretically put it under 272D, where it's like under such principles of conduct and ethical behavior, officials should conduct themselves with integrity in a manner that merits trust and support. So, I mean, that's also, that's not talking about like violations and standards, that's speaking about ethical
Avoid any
principles,
reasonable appearance of impropriety.
Yeah.
right? We avoid things.
And it's literally just to replace the phrase smell test to something that sounds more official. Or
So then
defines the smell test.
So
What's the
then,
smell?
under this code, if something hypothetical complaint came in, it was under our purview, we found it was not in violation of the standard, but it wasn't, necessarily like they were acting in good faith, or it was a perceived, I've already lost the language, but, subsection 4 that we're gonna reference in here, avoiding a reasonable appearance of impropriety, sounds like something.
I just think it's a cool phrase. I want to be able to use it somewhere.
The point being, though, you could then highlight that the
Yeah.
subsection 4, no violation found, we'd encourage you to revisit this section.
So it's not in black and white, discouraged right here.
Yes. Or reasonable appearance of, try it. Anyway, I don't want to drag this meeting out.
I want to have a short discussion about presentation given and then change it. We're gonna change it from 13 months to 24 months and then do it. Why?
Why? At your last meeting, you had discussed that section 2 dash.
I'm just, when city council
Yeah.
says why,
So
and I think there's some other verbiage in there about them presenting in front of or presenting to the city for 2 years.
yes, so that would be section 2-81 representation.
So my point is maybe we just say we're trying to make it consistent.
To align it with the other section.
So that would mirror each other.
Right, that's what I'm.
Well, that was a short discussion.
but a good one, because I think too, I mean, that's gonna be the first question, is like, that's a substantial change in time.
We can,
Improved
just with the IERB, that's why.
Oh, I think it's more appropriate, but we also want to make.
Yeah.
it 13.
Did we have a comment online? I'm sorry, I thought I heard. No. Okay, just checking. Any other questions or comments on the code while we're still discussing?
So at that meeting, that will go, is it will be an action item, it's on the presentation. And so it would be consideration action on the resolution changing the board's hearing procedures, and then on the separate item, consideration and first reading on changes to the code of ethical conduct. And because there's such short changes, I don't think that I would need to do a workshop on this. And I would probably just do an FY that you met time, March, June, and September, these are the recommendations that you are making. They will be including it and we have some changes, some language changes in a few other sections. And then, yeah, so this will be including that. So it'll be a presentation, different sections, not the 8 revisions at this point to the code. So I'll just go up there and I'll go in order of the code, and then chapter 2, these are changes we'd like to make. Then the ethics review board stuff at these meetings, definitions, they like that as a benefit for the stuff that can link after reading the number of articles of interest. They like language, sample language from other cities, Laredo is this one, and this is a recommendation to you in management proceedings. That's in there right now. We notice some inconsistencies. We can refer back to section 2-87. 2-97 and requirements to file this because they may not know the source, or that sort of thing, made it easier for this to come forward and allow them to get an opportunity to confirm the board for name clearing as opposed to having to make such a high burden. Periodic review, just like the charter, which reviewed every 5 years. The board felt it was very important that we not go to 15-year reviews. And although they make reviews every meeting based on articles of interest, they wanted to make sure there was a line in the sand of when a mandatory review would occur. As far as restrictions applicable to former officials, going through the code, they noticed that section 2-85 and 2-81 is not matched. 2-81 has a 2-year prohibition on representing an individual in front of boards. And so they suggested for your approval that we also make the financial interest, which is in 2-85.
So the hearing procedures of proceed.
I believe it's a resolution. And resolutions is usually higher.
Okay. Expectation for us around that.
I could talk to my boss, I may be able to do an FYI and just go on this presentation of all the things. Move on. Just depends on how well my writing skills are and if anybody has any. So I don't think I'm just gonna have any questions. These are all pretty straightforward. They may have some questions for what are reciprocal benefit means. Because we did try to adjust that some in the task force as far as the golf course membership and that sort of thing, and we struggle with fun. Or they just will be distracted with everything else and then just go.
Let's do that.
Put an asterisk on it.
Yeah.
I really don't see any of these things of any controversy to them.
None of them look very volatile.
No, and it's an interesting topic, but it would be very difficult for council to say, oh, no.
It'd be interesting,
to
wouldn't it?
approve this
And I
based on your input.
think we faced the biggest hurdle with city council getting this document to exist. Everybody who's on the city council now entered city council while this document was already in existence. Right?
They've all been trained on it.
Right, so they came in and the biggest issue was getting city council to go, yeah, we need this and we're going to accept it and enforce it.
Which is why I was
So-
curious about the hearing procedures, if there were, any questions or concerns in that arena.
You know, I think now they're just used to it and they know it's document that's there, it's a living document, it's the constant change.
And I think it's helpful that there's never been a complaint. And so the likelihood of actually leaving those is rare, but it will be comforting to have them in place. Because the ones in place now applied back when they were the board. I don't really see, and there's just nothing controversial. So,
We like to maintain repair guy. We're happy when there's nothing to do.
I do have a few articles in reserve. For your next meeting. So I actually.
More from our friends at the north,
Balance.
Dallas, I
Dallas, there's one, I think. Virginia. I don't remember all the
Not
different,
Volusia County. Mountain County.
not Loudon.
Good, good. Counties.
Right.
Nothing else on the file.
Okay, does anybody have any other comments or questions on these items?
Make the motion.
Before we adjourn, I'm sorry, I missed this. For the minutes, I know member Wolf made the motion. Was there a second?
I made the motion, I think
Nobody.
Ted, second, no,
Okay.
beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
fine.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay, thank you.
Should we replicate that? Can I
Okay,
make-
there a motion to adjourn.
Can I make a motion that we adjourn?
I'll second it.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you so much.
You did good.
Thank you.
That
Let's get it done.
was currently on the Ohio.